It's really an honor for me to introduce Dave Greenberg, one of the founders of Civi, who's going to talk first, and then I'll finish up. That's great.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dave, and they asked me to come speak at this 20th anniversary of the project, I guess because I was there at the beginning. Can everybody hear me? Okay, cool. This is probably my first time speaking in front of a large group in about 10 years. In general, what I've been doing is speaking with groups of kindergarten and first graders and sharing live animals and science projects and stuff like that. So this is a whole room full of adults. Oh my God. But the good news is a whole lot of familiar faces here, people that I've known for quite a long time, and it's actually overwhelming. I'm just feeling so much joy at seeing a lot of the people who have taken this project to new heights and have made wonderful lives, built lots of friendships. It's been quite an amazing experience, I think, for many people, and I'm really thrilled to be one of the people who sort of planted a seed for that way back in 2004. Oh my God. So I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes with some reminiscing and a few memories and a little bit, one version of how it got started, why it got started. History is kind of a funny thing. It looks different depending on who's telling it. So this is just one person's history, and apologies for anybody who feels like maybe they're part of the story I didn't cover or distorted, whatever. It's just one bit of reflection. So I came to the Bay Area in 1976, having spent some years in Portland, being part of a Radical Ferries commune and a community center, coffee shop, and came here with my psych degree and thought I was going to do social work in the Tenderloin with community mental health. And that got crashed pretty quickly when Reagan came in and basically closed everything down. So I wound up doing HR at a bank and then eventually getting into software because there was this part of me as a kid that liked director sets and liked reading Charles Dickens. It was, a very confused young boy. Anyway, so that led to a career in software development, banking software, which eventually started feeling really, really yucky. It was like, I'm not doing anything to help make the world a better place. And so I arrived at Groundspring, which was a project of the Tides Foundation. And we had built a online donation processing software as a service called Donate Now, which was pretty early in the space and pretty cool. And another fella named Donald Lobo, hereby after being referred to as Lobo, was also at Groundspring, and we started working together there on that project. Pretty quickly we realized that these organizations needed more than just a way for people to press a donate here button. They actually needed to communicate with those folks, and so we built basically an email system called Email Now. Problem was that they were sort of disconnected. The data was all about mailing lists or all about contributions, and the people data wasn't really connected. And so we were thinking, well, we need to do something a little bit more unified. No more data silos, right? And at the same time, Lobo was drinking the open source Kool-Aid, which was mysterious to me, but he thought it was the coolest thing. So we tried to talk the Tides Foundation into open sourcing the product and making it a more unified product for nonprofits. And they thought that was a crazy idea. How are you going to make money? How are you going to support it? How are you going to sustain it? So Lobo said, let's just go do it. So we did do that. You can go to the next slide. So these are just, well, this is Donald Lobo, who hopefully some of you had a chance to meet. An amazing, amazing person. And without whom this project would never have happened for sure. And also on the screen are some really early, very active folks. Michael Mach, who joined us very early on from Poland and talked to us right away about the fact that this couldn't be a US-centered, English-centered product, that we needed to be thinking about internationalization right from the very beginning. And then Kurun Jalmi, who led a team of developers in India at Web Access, which did a lot of the early development on the project. And Michael McAndrew, who was our first really almost full-time community manager and did a lot of work once we realized that it couldn't be just like the 4 or 5 of us doing this. We really needed to get a lot of people involved and build a community with it. But at the beginning, it was Lobo and I, and in my kitchen counter, ironically, it turned out he lived a block from me, which we didn't realize when we started working together in San Francisco. We were trying to figure out what we were building, what the data objects were going to look like, how to make sense out of something that was really going to be centered around constituents, around people as the main thing. And then everything else was sort of hanging on the people. You can go to the next slide. So in getting ready for this, I was sort of going through my archives a bit and trying to think about how things were at the very beginning. And I came upon this little sketch, which is a 0.1 user interface screens. And it's sort of funny. But the cool thing is that it wasn't that far off, considering that we were just beginning there, and I was sort of interested to see that right away. The other thing on that screen that's interesting is pretty early on we were trying to figure out who we might be talking to about use cases, and we made a connection with Zach Rosen, who had been working on Howard Dean's campaign and building campaign software, distributed campaign software on Drupal. And they then pulled together, after the Dean campaign didn't succeed, they were thinking, well, what can we do better? And so they pulled together an organization called CivicSpace, and they were building campaign software on top of Drupal, which was one of the, is still one of the great and one of the early open source CMSs. And so we spent a bunch of time talking with them about their use cases, and they made a determination that what we were doing could fit sort of under the covers of Drupal, which sort of got us more into the idea that a CMS incorporated with our CRM that we started thinking about it as would actually make sense and work. And so that was really useful for us because the very first releases of Civi ran inside Drupal and gave us a presentation layer right away, as well as a user community that was already there to start working with. And I think it was just a great way for us to get started. Next thing I did looking through the archives, I was looking at some very old blog posts, relatively old blog posts, which it's cool that they're still up there. And a couple of them just sort of jumped out at me. So this one is July 2005, so we were barely getting started, and we were trying to figure out and announce translations in all those languages, which I don't think any of them at that point really sort of got all the way through and succeeded, but it's sort of amazing and interesting to me that we were that ambitious at that point about internationalization. And eventually those bore fruit, because I guess we have a lot of great internationalized versions now, so that's great. The second piece was interesting to me because there was a lot of debate early on about whether we needed to do software as a service, whether the project needed to do that. And I think for a long time the idea was, nah, we don't need to do that. Every organization should own their data. They should deal with their own hosting. Let's keep stuff all separated. But I think CivicSpace, on the other hand, probably had the right idea early on, realizing that a lot of organizations needed a lot of handholding and a lot more help than they could get in trying to put these systems together all by themselves. So that was a place where I think we were late to the party in terms of realizing what was needed. Well, there is one person in this picture that's in this room right now, Eileen. So I pulled this picture out. We had a few sprints before the book sprint, but for me, our first book sprint was quite an interesting memory because it was a time when we were really realizing that the project needed a lot more than just developers to succeed. That we needed to really engage end users and implementers and people from the organizations using it, and we needed to also make the project much more accessible by having really good documentation, because we didn't have that before then. So we all got together in Tahoe, actually at house that Bob and I have. And my husband Bob is sitting back there, my husband of 40 years, by the way. And had this amazing experience of being together for 5 days and creating a book. And that book still exists, I saw. It's better than it ever was, available online. But that was just a real community experience of working together, no judgment, lots of drafts and thinking together and trying together. How do we explain this stuff in a way that's going to make sense and make it easy for people to use the product? So that was really great. That was the second sprint, which was the next year. So this picture sort of says to me kind of how we work together, and it kind of is kind of how sprints are, I think, to this day, where there's a lot of sitting around on the floor and there's a lot of wires everywhere and a lot of pillows, and it's just, it's homey. And I feel good that we created a project that can feel like home to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people in this room still have that feeling, and that's terrific. And of course, on the left, a very important player in the community, CiviDog, who helped write that first book.
That first book.
Go on. Just another sprint picture, because again, I think the sprints are a really great way that we build community. This one was at Woolman, and Coleman, who's sitting here at front, sort of shepherded us all to this wonderful place in the country where we worked hard and we sat on the floor a lot and we ate really great food, and produced a lot of good work at the same time. So that was really cool. So I need to show you, I'm actually wearing that t-shirt right now, which is from
Ooh, he's gonna show the shirt.
This is CiviCon.
The original shirt.
Kind of fun. And I put up that picture on the left because there's another gentleman who's in this room right now who's in the picture. Stuart, yes. Stuart was really a terrific leader in the community and letting us realize how important training was going to be. And communicating with end users how to better use, and having them communicate with each other how to better use the software. And I think that's, again, something that we were a little late to the party in really getting into that, but I think once we did, with these conferences, with the trainings that have been held, with the sprints that are also training events, people come to the sprint to learn. And so that's really wonderful. So yes, but that's CiviCon Chicago, which was 2011. I was happy to see, looking at some of those pictures, that some of the consultancies that are here today were supporting the project way back then, and are still evidently doing well and successful. I was just talking to Dave Morton and a little bit to Paul and a few other people, realizing that this sort of hybrid project that we have, that at some point we realized we needed to have partners and implementers that were an important part of the project. And these businesses that have created thriving workplaces and livings for people, kind of amazing that, and many of them have had a lot of resilience and stuck around and kept giving back to the project and supporting the project over quite a few years. And when you think about the kind of churn that you typically see in tech organizations, that kind of sustainability is kind of mind-blowing, and really, really wonderful for me to see. It's all about the community, really, really. One last thing, there is some life after CiviCRM. I wanted to mention, because Lobo's not here, I wish he could be here, but he is a very busy fellow doing a whole lot of software work, open source software work based in India. And he has these 3 amazing projects. This Glyphic is a WhatsApp chat box that is used by many hundreds of Indian nonprofits, as well as these 2 other projects, also quite amazing. And for me, I've been working with a kids museum in Truckee, and I successfully used ChatGPT to help them with their mission. Interesting. And I've been doing a lot of ceramics and enjoying my retirement. So there is life after Civi, but I don't recommend any of you retire yet, because we need you all. And thanks for letting me come up and talk, and welcome, and have a great conference.
Thank you, Dave. So much that we've learned from Dave, Lobo, and the early folks.